Welcome back. In today's video, we're flying to the US, ride some of the Oregon and some of the Washington BDR and make some new friends. After finishing up work in Seattle, yes, there was a reason why I was in the US, I took the scenic Highway 20 across the Cascades and made my way down to Bend. From there I will pick up my rental bike. The bike being a bit heavier than what I'm riding at home and running a 50/50 tire, the focus on the first few miles was getting used to it and to remember to stay right. Eventually I made it to where I joined Section 4 of the Oregon BDR. The track started as a nice gravel road, slowly deteriorated and eventually turned into sand. The sand section wasn't too long, and after the logging operation the track improved. I then ran into Steve and Jay having a break. After a chat they invited me to ride with them. I declined, assuming they would be much faster than me on their smaller bikes, and I didn't want to be rushed, riding the first day on an unfamiliar bike. Eventually the view opened up to a great view of the sisters and the less great view of rain clouds. A quick stop and a short walk got me to a nice little lookout. Back in the forest, the route followed a fun 2-track most of the way to Sisters. Reaching Sisters just before lunch, I had plenty of time to enjoy a sandwich at the smokehouse. Originally I was planning to stay somewhere nearby, but being so early in the day I decided to continue and start Section 5. It didn't take too long and I ran again into Steve and Jay. This time they were putting rain gear on. I asked them where they planned to stay and if I could tag along, so we started riding as a group of 3. The few drops in the forecast turned into some decent rain. It made the black lava sand very interesting to ride. It somehow managed to turn from sand to slick mud immediately. Finding some shelter by a toilet, Trank caught up to us and we started riding as a group of 4. Eventually the rain eased off and we arrived in Detroit, where we met Kurt, Steve and Jay's friend, driving the support truck. Nobody was keen to camp with everything being damp, but all the available rooms in Detroit were booked out. Well, all 4 of them. Luckily we found an RV park with a cabin available a few miles down the road. We enjoyed an evening with a working heater to try out gear, some cold beers and good banter. The next morning started cold but without rain. I decided to ride solo again, so I can take my time to stop and take videos. Outside of Detroit, roadworks were closing the road for 2 hours at a time. I decided to take my chances and see how far I'll get. Turns out the road closure was after the route turn off. Good choice. Coming around the turn, suddenly Mount Jefferson was right in front of me. What a great ride. I decided to give the hard alternative a go that would get me to Lake Olali. Turns out, not just me, but also the bike had to work a bit harder. Not having a fan, the bike overheated when I was going slow for a while. Ah well, there could have been worse places for a forced break. The track was challenging and fun. The amazing views were just the icing on the cake. Oh, looks like it's time for a bit of track work. I enjoyed my lunch at the lake and shared it, well, not voluntarily, with a cheeky squirrel. A bad line choice on the muddy 2-track led to a laydown. With the bike and the rider still in working order, I continued. As there's no video evidence, this will stay between us, right? A little later, I ran into Jay and Steve sitting in the sun. While not planned, this was perfect, as I left my beer in the fridge in the cabin, and they took it with them. Eventually, we made it to government camp, set up our tents, and went to the Timberline Lodge for a beer. If you remember the movie Shining, it might look familiar. A short road section got us to Bennett Pass the next morning, with some exposed riding, fantastic autumn colors, and amazing views. The track had plenty of opportunities for pinch flat. Luckily, we managed to avoid them all. The rocky tracks with sharp rocks kept coming. The short asphalt section provided some relief. A quick stop to check out Mount Hood.
It's hiding a little bit.
Then there were easy, fast gravel roads the rest of the way to Hood River. A quick stop in town to get a birthday card for Kurt. And then we reached the official end of the Oregon BDR.
Now it's official.
Kurt, Jay and Steve packed up and we said our goodbyes. Being just around lunchtime, I jumped on the highway to get to the start of the Washington BDR.
Thank you, you too.
The $2 toll fee got me over the Bridge of the Gods, with amazing views and exposure due to the see-through decking. After topping off the fuel and getting a corn dog, I hit the first dirt section on the Washington BDR. Looking for a campsite, I stopped at the Peterson campground. While the campground was closed for the winter, the gate was open, so I decided to stay there. After pitching my tent, I spotted a bobcat passing by about 50 meters away. Not being familiar with them, I was getting to my bear spray pretty quickly. I did not have the most relaxed evening with nobody else in the campsite, and disappeared pretty early in my tent that night. The next morning started with a quick stop at the Galler Ice Caves. You could definitely start feeling that the winter is just around the corner. I stopped at the Baby Shoe Ridge viewpoint to make a coffee, only to realize I used up all my water, so I enjoyed the view of Mount Adam without one. A coffee stop and fueling up in Packwood. That's where I should have topped up my water too. The next bit was following Highway 12 for a bit, with some great twisties and views. Back on dirt, the road started climbing. As the Bethel Hitch Road was closed, I decided to check out the Cache Prairie lookout instead. What an amazing view! I could have camped here, if only I topped up my water earlier. Well, that will teach me. It was time to move on and look for a campsite with water. As it was the first weekend in the fishing season, all campsites nearby were booked out, and the few hotel rooms available were priced ridiculously. So I decided to head back into Yakama, where I knew I can get a cheap campsite with a hot shower. Now it was decision time. Heading further north on the BDR and have a long road day back at the end, or head south tomorrow. With nighttime temperature forecasted around freezing, a hotel and a few day trips around Bend sounded pretty good. The next morning it was time to make my way back south. After getting out of Yakama on the interstate, I turned onto Highway 97. It follows Yakama Valley before heading over Sandage Pass and then makes its way down to the Colorado River. The pass is just over 3,000 feet and I definitely could feel the temperature drop to 40 degrees. No wonder it was so windy with all those gigantic fans going. With a bit of fuel anxiety, the reserve was on for the last 18 miles. I made it just into the quirky town of Schenkel. At least that's what the lady pronounced the town's name that told me to lower my expectations about the coffee selection when I asked for a mocha. Well, I wasn't picky, anything warm was great and I had time to have a look around town before moving on. I decided to detour through Sisters and check out the Skylight Cave. Turns out it's closed mid-September to May to protect the small bats population. Ah well, at least the ride through the forest was fun. Time to head to Bend. The next morning I headed to Pina Lake. The plan was to join Section 3 from there and do the northern half of it and the southern half of Section 4. But first a stop at the Pina Peak lookout to brew a coffee and enjoy the 360 views. As the connecting road to the BDR was closed due to a past fire, I checked out the lakes and waterfalls. I then decided to head back towards La Pine and find my own way to the BDR by connecting a number of forest roads. After some great riding through the forest, I rejoined the BDR a bit further north than I planned. By then it was time for something to eat before following the BDR to Sun River, for some fuel and starting on Section 4. Unfortunately, that section was also closed due to fire activity, so I followed the bypass back to Bend. For the last day, I decided to do sightseeing and visit the Cradle Lake National Park. The morning started with a chilly 30 degrees. it made for a long hour and a half to get to the park. Luckily, it started warming up fast and the thermometer climbed to 60 degrees by mid-morning. And then amazing views connected by twisties. What else could I want? In the afternoon, the temperature climbed to 85 degrees, so what I was too cold in the morning, I was too warm in the afternoon. Turns out it's not just little towns in Australia and New Zealand that erect random sculptures to get tourists to stop. The next day I dropped off my bike, made my way back to Seattle and cleaned all my gear to pass the Australian biosecurity inspection. What a fantastic trip! If you liked the video, please subscribe. If not, let me know what I can do better.